you to receive you. Okay, sir. And you are even inquiring whether I will be coming at all or not. Looking smart. आज के दिन तो बहुत प्यारे कुत्ते कुत्ते नाचते अल्लाह खैर करे बिजली कहाँ गिरेगी एक तो आप ऐसा करो सब लोगों को यहाँ इकट्ठा भीड़ मत लगाओ
Congratulations. Again and again. Sudhir Devre. Happy Morning.
We see you and Amitabh every time on TV. You know, I was admiring your. I was just today. I don't know what happened. I was just thinking.
But you haven't also.
I'm I have kept my picture. You remember you had come for my dance. I have my picture.
একটা ক্লিক করে দেবে জেপি একটা ফটো ছাপতে হবে ওকে
He would have boycotted me, you know. Saying, they were wondering how you're going to manage to come here after Amit's birthday. I said he would have boycotted me.
20-year-old, 15-year-old promise actually. You have to let them
I met somebody in Bombay recently. I don't know who it was. Said, oh, you're going for JP's book release. I said, yeah. Oh, we were colleagues. I said, so were we.
Mr. Tripathi, he is the Iike man who is the organizer of this. I don't need Basan.
Come on. Yeah. Oh yes, of course.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. And oh yes, that's very important. अच्छा लग रहा है आपको देख कर।
Say best
family का। Sure.
Nice. I can just spend time to.
मैं भी चाहूँगी कि मेरी एक किताब आप
जोहर आ रहा है। जोहर
मैं भी अगर देखिए मैं आपसे कॉन्टैक्ट करूँगी।
Stage. I request Shri Anant Mahapatra, who has visualized our Theatre in Motion initiative, to welcome the eminent guests by presenting the bouquets. Shri Anant Mahapatra pioneered the theatre movement in Orissa in 1964. He has been the member of Indian delegation to 14th World Theatre Congress in London in 1965. Besides being part of jury of Indian Film Panorama, member of Central Board of Film Censor, member of Satyajit Ray Film and Television Society, and state convener of INTAC. Shri Mahapatra has directed about 60 plays staged at NSC Delhi, Natya Mela, Calcutta and at Mumbai. He was the force behind the revival of professional theatre in Orissa in 1999. Now I request Shri Anant Mahapatra to introduce this evening's program. Mr. Mahapatra.
Namaskar. Thank you, Sangeeta. Jaya Bhaduri from the days of Guddi to Jaya Bachchan, Honorable Member of Rajya Sabha. Sri Jawahar Sarkar from the days of galvanizing the pan-Indian and beyond movement of 150 years of Rabindranath Tagore to hopefully bigger and better days of Prasar Bharati. Sri Narendra Pawar, whom I consider to be a publisher of Odisha culture, with JP Ramakanta Ratha, Sitakanta Mahapatra, book on Odishan art, and biography of endearing Biju Patnaik. JP, about whom I should speak the least, to give him the opportunity to speak about the book, about himself, and or about me, if he chooses to. I miss Nirmal Kanti, who is traveling abroad, otherwise he would have shared the moments of joy here with us. Involved with theatre for more than 5 decades, along with radio, television and films, I have felt that it is the performing arts, even when performed outside, brings back the message into your homes. In 1977, it was the glorious days of modern Indian theatre, when plays of different regional languages were translated and were performed all over the country of very eminent, very well-known like Mohan Rakesh, Vijay Tendulkar, Badal Sarkar, Girish Karnad later. Now this effort of ours is because we find the regional language plays are being staged in their regions, in their cities. This movement is to take those theatres from one city to another city, to another group of audience, and in the process open up a pan-Indian theatre scene. It is equally a coincidence that I had directed the first play that JP had written way back in 1972-73. But of course then neither he nor I thought that he will ever be a playwright. Now this book release also means it's the play again which is part of this movement of theatre in motion. I hope all of you would carry this message home and to others. Thank you. Thank you.
Jaya ji, Jepita, Ananta Babu, Narendra Kumar ji, very respected members of the audience, I find everyone here to be an expert on these subjects. I am here to I have the pleasant duty of winding up this part of the proceedings so that you can all watch the play. And as I was comparing the other members on the stage, I was getting into spasms of inferiority complex. Here is a man who writes plays and poetry. There is another who publishes them, a third who directs them, and a fourth person who acts. What the hell am I doing here? But then, let's move on. I couldn't say no to JP there because though I have to rush to catch a flight outside, because from the first day when I met him, he is perhaps the elder brother I never had. He has always been, as Jaya puts, a very, very human being. He has played down his intellectual heritage, his intellectual excellence with a very down-to-earth, demeaning, self-lowering, a very modest appearance in everything. And he has, to his credit, a list of achievements that very few of us in this hall can be proud of. He has been, in fact, one of the foremost spokespersons of regional literature. And because of his fluency in 3 to 4 languages, actually I have found him speak 4 languages with equal fluency. He has been able to make his mark. More than that, I have always admired the man who could quit a service from which it is very difficult to get out once you are in, for pursuing what he loved the most, and stayed back to prove his point. He spoke a bit about his work, but wise men say that authors, playwrights, poets and others are best understood in what they have written rather than in what they say for the moment. The chemistry of that moment comes out in the characters, the consciousness, the subconsciousness, the reaction to the environment, his own way of looking at it that he perhaps would never be able to capture maybe the next day, comes out frozen in that piece of literature. When you get into 𝘼𝙬𝙗 and you see the dialogues, you will see streaks of Jepita, the leftist. A fact that he sort of plays down now, but comes out. Once you are pro-people, you remain pro-people all your life. So I would urge upon you, for those who have not read this book, to have a look at it. I had the good fortune of going through it a few weeks in advance. Few mentions of Tagore, Bhopal, radio, TV. They are all connected in my life in some sort of an inexorable way. You see, when the Tagore theatres that Mrs. Bachchan has spoken about in Bhopal came up. This was in the 1960s. 61 was the centenary year of the poet. And Professor Humayun Kabir, who was then the Culture Minister and Education Minister of India, took upon himself the task of building a string of auditoria. I've gone through the past papers. As expected, there are never funds for any good projects. So he found a way around by using the centenary year to start what is called the Rabindra Rangashala Rangamanch Auditorium. India was then in 61, we were in the 11th year of our republic and in the 14th year of our independence. We were adolescent. This string of auditoria that may or may never have performed a Tagore show, a Tagore piece, that was not the mandate. The mandate was to create theatrical spaces, performing spaces that could be hired for a few rupees. We have all performed there, and where it would be so accessible to the people that young India could come out and act their heart out. This is where theatre, poetry, literature would be able to flourish. What we tried to do in the 150th year was to give it a new lease of life. And Jayaji, I'm glad to inform you that governments notwithstanding, Bhopal is getting a new auditorium, Tagore Auditorium. They have asked for it, so Bhopal, till the moment I left the Ministry of Culture, they were getting. That's all I can say. Many others would be getting. About radio and TV, it fills us with nostalgia. Unfortunately, I have to live through it for another 5 years, 4.5 years. The cultural and educational profile of India, the character of India was brought together in no small measure by radio and TV. Vivid Bharati captured our imagination. The first amount of transmigration of thought, feeling, expressions also took place over our radio and TV that were then the beacons of beaming out the best that India could produce. I remember the relays of the cricket matches and football matches were more live than what we see on color TV today. You could actually see the ball go past you. You could almost feel it. Similarly, we used to get up onto the onto the terrace, many of us on dark nights, and open the radio plays to hear them endlessly. The point is, can we recreate it again? I am not very, very hopeful, because you remember, for Ramayana and Mahabharata, India would come to a halt at 9 a.m. It would come to a halt at 9 a.m. More modern, more expensive version of Ramayana is up on Z and Doordarshan. We are sharing it. But India does not come to a halt. So, culture, expression, books, and all others have both their own existence in a particular circumstance, in an age in which they have to be understood to retrieve the genius of that period, and they also have an everlasting value. In short, I would like to invite all of you to help us rebuild the two national institutions of Akashvani and Doordarshan in whatever way. Just a small business word before I leave, because I think it may be important. In one of the efforts that we're trying to take to revive regional language television, we are setting up in Delhi 11 committees called the Viewers Assessment Committee. We are looking for help from the best persons who actually take the trouble to watch TV. It's not necessarily that you have to watch DD Odia. You have to see Odia channels, compare them, and also help us come up with your assessment. It's not only intellectuals that we were looking for. Only 10.7% of India is above 60. 65% is above 35. We need to remember this demographic statistics. We are looking for housewives, we are looking for students, we are looking for youngsters, we are looking for intellectuals. But I can make a public announcement. The person who will head this body is going to be Das. He is going to be head of the Odia TV Viewership Committee, and I would request him to take this opportunity to invite others for us to join. We have had enough of a pack of programmers and a pack of bureaucrats deciding what is good for the nation. Those who are subject to these programs need to come out and voice their opinion so that it can enter into a more interactive, more informative, and more fruitful phase. With these words, I take this opportunity of thanking all of you who have come to this hall, especially Mr. Jaya Bachchan and Mr. Ananta Mahapatra, all my seniors that I see here. And all of us wish that this book belies its title. It should never be called the complete plays. It could be the incomplete plays, for we wait for the next volume of complete plays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sekha. Now I
Distinguished guests, my friendship with J.P. Das goes back to almost 40 years since he moved to Delhi in 73 and I moved to publishing. We have been in touch since then, have served on various committees together, shared the dais on many occasions. In the 80s, when I used to live in Gulbar Park, not far from Srimati Bachchan's house, J.P. Das lived close by. Many an evening, we would go to Taj Mansingh for a late night coffee, where J.P. Das was a very big hit with 𝘼𝙡𝙬𝙁𝙗. We published J.P.'s first collection of short stories in English translation, The Magic Deer, in 1983. Next year, we published his play, The Underdog, and followed it up with a poetry collection, Silences. Since then, we have published his many books under Vikas or Haranam imprints. Another play of his, 𝘼𝙭𝙬𝙁𝙗, which is included in this volume, to be released this evening, was also published by us. I would like to especially mention a book I commissioned. I got French writer Catherine Kalema and J.P. Das together and offered to publish a book of poems written by Catherine and translated by J.P. Das under the title Growing an Indian Star. In fact, we are planning to bring out a revised and large edition of the book to mark the celebration of France as the guest country at New Delhi International Book Fair in February 2013. Another book of J.P. Das I published was Films for Children, which he edited for the Children's Film Society, of which Mrs. Bachchan was sometime chairperson. Last year I suggested to J.P. Das that since he wrote in many different areas, it would be a good idea to have an omnibus of his writing, containing a sample of his poems, short stories, essays, speeches, children's writings, and so on. I requested his translator, Paul St. Yare, Professor of Translation, University of Montreal, to edit the volume, which was published last year. It is assumed between him and me that I shall publish any new book he came up with, and I hope he will give me many books in the different categories he has been writing. I would only be too happy to publish them. Thank you.
how I made my foray into writing plays. I spent my school and college days in Cuttack, which is a very small town, but those days were smaller still, but it had 3 theatre halls, had staging a play every night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we sort of grew up on theatre in our childhood and our school and college days. That was 1950s. In 1960s, I used to visit Calcutta often, and then I became familiar with the Calcutta theatre. Those are the days of 𝘼𝙡𝙬𝙗 and Shambhuvan Mitra and Badal Sarkar, of course. Rudra was also very promising at those days. So Ajitesh, of course. So these are the stars of Bangla theatre those days, and we grew up with them. In 1960, I wrote 2 short plays, and those 2 plays also figure in this volume that will be released today. And those were the days when Mr. Anant Mahapatra was producing plays for Orissa All India Radio, for the radio. So he commissioned me, if that is the word to be used, to write some plays, which I did and which he produced over the radio. Unfortunately, the scripts are missing, so they don't figure in this collection. Then I wrote the first full-length play in 1971. They say like a person has a kundli, a book also has a kundli. I mean, it does well or it doesn't do well, like a man's horoscope. So fortunately, this particular play which I wrote in 1971, it should have had a good kundli because it was written in 1971. A friend of mine translated into Bangla the same year. Next year, it was staged in Kolkata, and it had a production in Bangla outside Orissa before it was produced in Oriya in Orissa. Then somebody did the production, broadcast it over the radio, and got some sort of an award, and then because of that, it was translated into Hindi and it was sent to the All India Radio headquarters. And there it landed on the table of when Mr. Chiranjit was in charge of drama those days, and he passed on that script to Mr. Ram Gopal Bajaj. He liked the script and he produced it in Hindi version in Delhi in 1976. He was also lucky to have roped in Om Puri for the main character role. And we also had able support in that play from other actors. 2 of them are present here, Mr. Sudesh Sayal and Ved Sinha, who acted in that play. So that was in 1976. Then we had the only theatre magazine in English used to be Enact those days, which was sort of known all over the country, and the play in English translation appeared in that magazine, and it was translated in some other languages, and it was staged in other languages in different places. So that was the good thing that happened to the play. My second play also was quite fortunate to have got good backing, in the sense that I think I must say that all my plays have been done in other languages before they were staged in Orissa in Oriya language. So this other play, the Hindi translation, was picked up by a group, and they staged it in Delhi in 1978, where again they had very good actors. Pankaj Kapoor did a role in that play. Ravi Vaswani did a role, and my friend Banwari Taneja, who is also present here, he did a role. So it was a very successful production. And Ravi Vaswani himself did another production under his own direction, which was also appreciated, and Ravi translated the play into English. His translation appears in this volume, and in this volume contains a note of the director for all the plays, and Ravi has given a very sweet note, a director's note for the play. Unfortunately, I mean, you couldn't see the publication of this book. He passed away a couple of years back. So this is what my experience has been writing plays. I did 2 other plays. Perhaps they had bad kundli and they were not immediately picked up. And people thought that theatre person, sir, it's not stageable. The 2 plays were not stageable. Fortunately, some brave theatre directors. One was 𝘼𝙡𝙬𝙗, who will be directing the play to happen this evening. He produced this play called Absurd Play. And then the other play was directed by Shiva Prakash. And then they had very successful productions. And then I thought that there is nothing like a unstageable play for that matter. So I'm happy that the play which I wrote more than 40 years back is going to be produced here today. I hope it will, if you are attending and seeing this play, you will be able to judge whether it has aged in the meantime or still watchable and how you react to this play. I think with these words I must stop, and then we look forward to Jayaji releasing the book and saying a few words. Thank you.
Namaskar. All the dignitaries present on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, I can see 2 little boys too. How wonderful. No, there's another little girl and another little boy there. Good. Another one there. Wonderful. This is very important. I know that all you connoisseurs of good literature are present here, but it's very important that little children, even if they don't understand what's going on or what is inside the book, even if they read it, but their presence is very important, because this is what they are going to remember when they grow old. That's what I remember. That was my exposure as a child. We were allowed, we lived in Bhopal, and there was an auditorium which was called the Tagore Hall, very close walking distance. Anytime there was any function, whether it was a book release, whether it was a musical concert, whether it was theatre, or even some kind of a seminar where people were speaking, and those were very informal days, you didn't need a proper invitation. You could walk into the hall, sit and hear, see. In the beginning, we were encouraged by our parents to go there. By our parents to go there and be a part in the auditorium, and slowly we got interested. So we ended up being jack of all trades and master of none. It's a very important thing to have and possess, because you can pretend to be a part of something that you have nothing to do with, but understand what's going on. So, but today is not pretense. This is a long-term commitment to a colleague of mine called Dr.Das, who I've been very, very fortunate to have been associated with. वो भी Children's Film Society.
Yes, ma'am.
We have spent some wonderful times. They Dr.Das, Mr. Mahalik, they're very senior people in the government, but they became my friends and helped me, supported me, and I don't think we could have done what we did in those few years, and I think those were the best years of the Children's Film Society. Without the help of people like them, Gulzar Saab, Mr. Narasimhan. मगर मैं जब छोटी थी तो जब हम लोग स्कूल जाते थे और रिपोर्ट कार्ड्स आती थी तो हमारी माताजी जो हैं देखती थी मैथ्स में वेरी बैड, इसमें वेरी बैड. माय फादर यूज्ड टू ऑलवेज सी द लास्ट पेज which said attendance 100% and conduct. For him that was more important. He always told me it's not important to get great marks in a particular subject. It's important, not that important. It's very important to get good marks as a good human being. And I have always appreciated good people, whether they are on top or whether they are struggling writers, actors, or just human beings, but good people. And I'm here today because of a good person. So Dr. Das, I don't know, I'm going to read your book and I will tell you and give you my expert opinion if it is one. But I'm here for you because you're a good person. And I value that. You've been a good friend and a good human being. Outspoken, simple, clean. I understand that language better than any other language. And you will always be my friend. I'm sorry I took so many years to come for a book release, but I am here. Yes. So all's well that ends well. I wish you great success. And I hope that maybe something is good enough for me to produce and act in. It will be such an honor. I'm not a theatre actor, but acting is acting, it doesn't matter, I think. Sorry, yes. So, well, I don't know about that, but in a different way, maybe, yes. But I hope that something, I have been looking for a nice subject where I can play a part, whether it's for theatre or whether it's for the screen, and I'm hoping and I'm wishing that I'm going to get one from this book. Thank you for inviting me, and let me tell you, these are wonderful words to say because the house is full for so and so, but that's not true, because what I can gather, if I have any observation power, it is for pure words that are in here and for you. Thank you all for coming here and giving the respect that is due to a writer. I come from a family of writers, I'm married into a family of writers, and it's a very, very important aspect of my life. So thank you all, and thank you for calling me to release your book, Doctor. Thank you.
JP will call a few personalities on stage to make this interaction more human and meaningful.
Actually, I'm very touched by the nice things that Jaya said about me. Very touching indeed. I don't know whether I deserve it, I don't know. Anyway. So, I met many friends in the world of theatre while they doing production of plays, actors, directors, and some of them happen to be present here, and I would request, I would like to introduce them on this stage, and perhaps Jayaji, and request Jayaji to present them each a copy of the book. And Jayaji started with mention about children. My association with Jayaji was mainly through the Children's Film Society. And before that, of course, we were members of the jury of the National Film Awards 1 year. And the late Prem Nazir was a chairperson that year. That was early 1980s. And when we were members of the executive committee of the Children's Film Society, we were all older than Jaya. So, but we had very lovely experience, and she had we had international film festivals every 2 years, and the one she organized in Delhi was much bigger than the earlier ones or the later ones, and it was bigger than even many of the international events for children happening anywhere in the world during those days. So I still remember the one we had here.